my whole life, like my art and my life sit together like this, because I love to walk. I walk socially, I walk with my family, I walk by myself, and then I'm collecting ideas for paintings as well as I go along the way. And so it's all meshed together. But we tend to walk, I expect a lot of you do as well, in our old familiar places. So many walks near Kettlewell, near Burnsall, out of Grassington, you know, all these familiar places. But there's all this huge park to go at. So I thought, what a fantastic project to push myself to go and find nooks and crannies of the Yorkshire Dales that I did not know, walk in them, experience them. That's important, not just, like, I keep coming back to this, but not just fleetingly drive past them, but actually sort of physically taste them, feel them. Because what I was trying to do with each one, what I am trying to do with each one, is find out something that's special about that place, if I can, something that's unique, something that feels, that is that place, something that epitomizes it, if you will. I haven't been successful for all Dales with that, but it's fun to try and find it and then use that as the focus of my composition. So that's what I'm doing.
Excellent. So obviously, to do that, you must have to walk a lot to find these perhaps lesser known Dales. But so what, could you not just work from photographs? Could you not have a photograph that someone gives you of one of these 45, was it, named Dales? Could you not just work from that you know, that sort of a good, you know, a high quality photograph?
You'd have thought so, wouldn't you? But there's a few things there. First of all, let me just revisit that 45, because a few years ago, let me check when it was in 2016, folk will remember that our national park extended into Cumbria. We actually brought in some of Lancashire into the Yorkshire Dales National Park. And I looked at this and thought, had a quick look on the map and thought, none of them are named Dales, none of them are something Dale. Don't have to bother. But right at that same time, I was about to have a solo at the National Park headquarters building in Wensleydale. And I was discussing this with one of my contacts there. And she said, could you reconsider that, please? Because obviously it was a bit of a political hot potato, because the Cumbrian space, that landscape, had some very important iconic valleys in it. But the local dialect there meant that they were not called something Dale. So I was thinking I can dismiss them, but actually I was asked very specifically if I could include a few. So I've now got included over here, I've got Malastang and Eden Valley, the Rothay Valley and the Loon Valley, none of which I know, but I'm learning that Malastang has a derelict castle, a broken down castle, so that's going to be fun to explore. So actually it's 49 now that I'm tackling. I've done 33, I've got 16 to go. But yeah, you'd have thought, wouldn't you, that I could look up or ask for people to send me photographs of some of these that I haven't got to, and so that lockdown wouldn't be a big problem. But there is an issue there. And the issue is that it's composition. It's working out what that special thing is going to be. And it's all about the journey of a walk. When you walk up a hill, you always are soaking in the landscape. I don't know, there's sunshine suddenly on your back, which makes you feel happy. You get to the top and you can stop and take a breath, which makes you feel happy. You turn around and some light patch moves across the landscape and you're like, wow, look at that, because it picks out the contours as it goes. There's all this experience that's going on. And so because of that, I do little sketches as I go, make little notes, thank goodness for digital photography. That's fantastic because I can take loads of photographs. And it's not unusual for me to take about 100 photographs to inform a painting. And what happens is I bring all that experience back to my studio. I flick through all the photographs on the screen. I usually print out about 20. I spread all these out, my notes, my sketches, and I take quite a long time to think about what was important of that experience, that valley, that place. And then I worked my composition to offer that. And this means that often my paintings cannot be viewed. I can say, here's the map reference within half a mile or so, or a mile or so, but you can't stand in one place and see everything as depicted. For instance, here, if you're standing here, you can see these contours and a bit of these plateaus, but you would not be able to see as much of this valley over here and the top over here as you can in this painting, because I've meshed different viewpoints together to create that. Now, if I haven't been there myself and got out of breath going up that path and felt the sun on my back or the rain over my head or whatever's happened that day, if I haven't felt that myself, how can I know what I'm dismissing, what I'm simplifying, and what I'm honing into, and what's important to mesh together to make the painting that I want to offer? So yeah, so I have to walk them myself. That's what I find. And often if I've had a lovely holiday back to Canada or to New Zealand, people say, oh, wonderful, you'll be doing so much painting. But actually, no. And I hope people are beginning to understand that now, because those places I visit, I haven't got my painter's hat on and I don't know them well enough. I've got to kind of understand how the Yorkshire skies work, how the weather works here, how the geology works. That helps as well, understanding the shape of these wonderful places. And so I have to go and visit them myself. And that has been a frustration this lockdown. I did get back up into the High Dales in the summertime, and managed to get some of the tributaries high up in Swaledale. I've managed to do, I wonder if people know Muka and Thwaite, and there's a lovely hill here called Kiston Hill at the very top of Swaledale. And around this place, we've got lots of tributaries going off. We've got East Stonestall, West Stonestall, Birkdale, etc. boundaries. No, not the Sleddale, Great Sleddle. And I passed a lady farmer up there and I said something about Sleddale. And she said, no, Sleddle, it's Sleddle. And I thought, yeah, that's important, Lucia. I better take that on, Sleddle. Great Sleddle and Little Sleddle. But I found more of these in the summer and I've been able to paint them in this lockdown. The frustrating thing for me is I've run out. And this is my first painting of having run out of new dales that are lined up for me to paint for my quest. And hence it's above Kettlewell, a place that I know very, very well. So I'm so excited to be able to get back out there in April. I think the Yorkshire Dales National Park will be welcoming us again at that point. I hope
that's really helpful. I mean, I know you were just touching on, the fact you met a farmer when you were out in the Dales and she was correcting your pronunciation. But I know you were saying that you have some other stories about, I think, a number of the Dales which you've learnt about through, inquiry and discussions with the rangers in the national park. So could you just tell us a bit about those stories?
Absolutely. So I keep going back to this map, but it's so important. I've actually, you won't be able to see on the screen, I doubt, but the ones that are inked in black ink are the ones that I've done, and the ones in pencil are the ones I haven't done. Somehow I could share a picture of this. If you go onto my blatant bit of publicity, but if you go onto my website, which is simply luciasmith.co.uk, you and visit a page called Lucia's Blogs, which is along the top at the far right. You will then see I've written a series of blogs since I started my quest, and I do share this map several times as I go along, so that you'll hear, you'll get more information about some of these stories that you're hearing this morning. But yes, I was amazed to find little places that I didn't even, as I said, didn't even know of, but horrors. There were even places around Wharfdale that I didn't know. And this really shocked me, because I thought I knew my Wharfdale very, very well, our Wharfdale very, very well. But look at this one. Extraordinary. Mossdale. Now, Mossdale is a tributary to the River Wharfe. It's called Mossdale Beck up there, and it is a tributary to the River Wharfe. But it's the one on my map that doesn't seem to be connected.
Oh, it's just sort of sitting in space. Yeah. And
I was like, okay, I definitely got to go and explore it there. So walked up there, and it's, if people know Coniston, near Kilnthie Trout Farm, across the river from there, the little hamlet of Coniston, and behind there you can walk up a dry valley, which is a beautiful walk, a bit of a scramble at the top, but there is a track you can go up the side, which is easier. And I'd only ever walked to the top and then turned left or right, one way to Kettlewell, one way to Grassington. It's part of the Dales Way. I'd never carried on ahead. And as you carry on ahead, it's actually easy walking. It's a bridle track, and the ascent isn't too bad. You've done the worst ascent. And you're heading over to the big, wide open moors of Nidderdale, actually. But up on one of those upper plateaus, what greets you is quite an extraordinary sight, because it's where the geology changes, the geology, it changes abruptly. There must have been some sort of earthquake. I'm discovering that there's been all sorts of shakes and moves in this space that we call the Yorkshire Dales. And there's a beautiful rounded heather-coated moor that comes down to sudden green and limestone escarpments. So presumably somehow there's been a shift in land, and you've got a very, very abrupt change. So it's a bit baffling to take on, actually. It just looks odd. But there, just where this abrupt change comes, is a little flat bottomed valley with Mossdale Beck running across the top. And as you approach it, you can hear it and you think, okay, there is quite a lot of water there, but I can't see it here. What's happened? And it's like the reverse of Malham Cove. Instead of like Malham, you've got a big cliff and a little river Aire coming out the bottom of it. Here, you've got a cliff, much, much smaller than Malham, but you get the idea. A limestone cliff is quite a big cliff. And Mossdale Beck comes along and disappears, gushes down a pothole at the base, which you can watch, and it's mesmerising. And it makes a lot of noise because it's going down into an underground waterfall. And then I asked the rangers, and evidently that water joins the River Wharfe underground, somewhere down below Grasswoods, near Grassington. And I never knew that. And it was really quite amazing to be up there thinking, well, this water eventually flows through Ilkley, but it's got quite a journey yet. It's going down that waterfall, down that pothole, through all sorts of caverns, and it's going to rejoin the River Wharfe down there. So I did paint Mossdale, and I called the painting Mossdale Mischief. It's sold. You'll have to read find the blog about that, and that will tell you more and show you the painting. But I have got one of the paintings here about one of the I was going to tell you about one of the other stories. Sorry, it just got muddled up. There's several stories. This one is about a valley called Kingsdale. I'll just swap my easel over again and you'll be able to see.
Cool. That's cool. Oh, you all right, Lucy?
Yeah, I'm fine. All right. I've also got to just reposition the easel. Is that? Yeah, I think you can see here. Yeah, lovely.
Perfect.
So we're limestone country. We're still limestone country. We're actually up near Ingleborough and Ingleton. So Kingsdale, which is spelled K-I-N-G-S, like as if it's royal, is if you come out of Ingleton and up towards Ingleborough, that valley, and you're heading up to the Ribble's Head Viaduct, that valley is called Dodale. But there is a sort of a parallel valley, which is slightly further north. And if you've come out of Ingleton and up Ingleton Falls, up the waterfall walk, right at the top and just keep going for half a mile, that is Kingsdale. And when I discovered this on a map, I thought, okay, so did some royal prince or somebody once travel through in a carriage and everybody got really excited, and so it's got this royal name? And I really thought that must be the situation. And I walked around it and gazed at it, and we walked down near the mouth of it, which was here, and then further up it as well, and I painted it twice. Actually, as so often happens with the Yorkshire Dales, I've made it seem as if we either get this scenery or we get the sort of that sort of scenery, but in fact often it's meshed together a little bit more complicated. And actually at the top of Kingsdale it does go into more curved moors, and I loved all that difference. But by the end of the day, this beautiful blue sky had come out, so I captured it like this with lots of joy, and called the painting Royal Blue, because Kingsdale. Later on, I found out some more information about Kingsdale, and it is very much like all of the Dale, a glaciated, you know, what we see is the result of this glaciation and the ice age that came and went here. And it's almost a circular dale, like a bowl, very flat at the bottom. Clearly some sort of glacial lake had been retained there as everything melted. And at its mouth, there's a very big lip. I think they're called a moraine lip. It's where the glacier, the water and the ice leaves a load of debris. So you can imagine that lip made this gorgeous lake, and gradually that drained away. And this was fantastic fertile pastures for our ancestors. And Kingsdale turns out to have derived from KN Dale. And some folk might now know where I'm going with this, because KN, which is not spelt with a K, but with a C, C-A-E-N, Dale, the old Dale pronunciation. KN actually means the place where we keep the cows.
So not quite as regal as you were imagining.
No. There's still a lot of sheep farming up there now, which I'm really pleased about, because cows are a different shape to put amongst the landscape, and I'm much happier putting a few sheep in my paintings. So there we are. But what a fascinating story. And I've loved finding out all these backstories to these fabulous places. There's another one coming into Wensleydale. I expect a lot of people know Castle Bolton up in Wensleydale. And up behind Castle Bolton, if you walk, there's a lovely footpath up there, and it actually takes you right over the moor, down Grinton Moor and down into Swaledale. But on the sort of Wensleydale side of that watershed, there's a very lovely, gentle little upper dale with various little streams joining together to make a little beck that then runs down towards the back of Castle Bolton. And this place, curiously, is called Ape Dale. Again, I'll spell it just so that we're sure. Yes, it's spelled A-P-E, Ape Dale. What? You know, were the monkeys there? What's going on here? So I went and walked and looked and took my picnic and had a good look around, and could see some old shafts of old lead mining and stuff like that, but most of it's sunk into the ground. And it's a beautiful place of sort of untamed wildness, lots of heather, and we're back to that. This is actually up near Bardon, but that sort of landscape, if you understand. And So, okay, what's going on with this name? Well, it turns out that it is derived from Appy Dale, and the Appy is spelled Appi, Appy Dale. And the Appy were some of the first invading Norsemen in the area. And we're looking at 7th, 8th century here, way before Castle Bolton was there. And I'm imagining that this upper dale, this had lots of fresh water sources, had some fairly level ground to build some shelter, but also it had this lovely circle around it of watershed where if you stood guard, you'd be able to defend this space. It was also not right down in one of the big valleys, but up, again, a good defence position. So this actually was the place of the Appy. And it's just extraordinary to think there was that settlement there, and hence Apedale, and then later on huge lead mining industry. I read into that as well, and there was a railway there. There's no sign of that now. But now Mother Nature really is reclaiming it. The ruins of that lead mining are sinking under the heather, into the peat. And I just love that big, wild space. Again, going back to great for your mental health, that breathing space, a place to be. And so I called my painting of Appydale or Apedale Untamed, and just as a nod to the fact that Mother Nature can actually take it back as well.
So, I mean, just moving perhaps to the final area of the conversation, Lucia. I mean, obviously you've mentioned already the impact of the lockdown on you and your ability to do what you love to do, and that whole issue, you've referred to it, you know, the strap line of the national park of breathing space, and about the importance of nature and our mental well-being, which I think we've all become so acutely aware of during lockdown. And we're so fortunate, aren't we, to live in such a beautiful part of the world. But even so, the restrictions lockdown has placed on you, tell us about that from an artistic, creative perspective. What's that felt like for you?
Yeah. I mean, it has been hard, and I shockingly discovered in the summer, when I looked back at the body of work that I painted during the first lockdown in the spring. Luckily, again, I'd got a backlog of my quest paintings to paint. I kind of have little, if you like, there. Some of them are digital, some of them are all over the place in sketchbooks, but if you like, a folder of each experience waiting, ready to be painted. And I had a few of those, so great, I could do those. And these were some of my first group of some of these dales high up in Swaledale. And I looked back at these in the summer and was quite horrified to see that my colour palette had just gone quieter, gloomier, more atmospheric. And it worked. I mean, the painting sold, but this wasn't the joy that I normally feel about the dales at all. And I feel I want to put joy in my paintings to lift people's homes, their daily life as they look at the painting, and to encourage people to go out and take some of that joy for themselves. And so I was really, really concerned to see that my palette had naturally, and without me thinking about it, had quietened and sort of gone into lockdown itself. And talking to quite a few other artists that I work with, as it were, through Ilkley Arts, I discovered that for quite a lot of us, this unconscious influence was really profound and was actually really difficult to counter. Really difficult to counter. And it's one of the reasons why I'm pushing myself to paint that very bright green happy painting above Kettlewell at the moment, because I thought, well, if it works from my unconscious into the colours. If I paint happy, bright colours, perhaps that will work the other way. Because just like everybody, you know, we've all had gloomy days this last year, and they can take their toll. And so we have to do what we can to lift that. But I'll leave you with, in this part of the chat, with one more fantastic story, if I may, about another picture. And it actually was painted in this lockdown. It's about to be framed, and you'll see what I mean, I think, about colours and the impact of lockdown. Hold on a jiffy.
Ah, yes. So
I've managed to keep some joy in it, but there's a real atmosphere around it. This is Oldale, UL Dale, and it's right at the very, very top of Swaledale. If you keep going on past Newcastle and Thwaite and on up there, you eventually drive near this. And wild, bleak open moors. Half a mile later, you come across the sign that says, "Welcome to Cumbria." So you really are right at the top. And in this fantastic place, we stopped and began looking around, got our map out to try and find Oldale. Walking across this sort of boggy, difficult, footpaths undefined, landscape where we weren't sure, there didn't seem to be many land features. We really spent quite some time, and it was quite difficult walking, and I couldn't work out where exactly Oldale was. We couldn't see a stream, we couldn't, it was very confusing. But then, just towards the end of a frustrating walk, I turned back and I saw that pattern, and I quickly drew that in my sketchbook. This is the actual sketch. Here it is, the wiggle, the squiggle, if you like. And I went back to the map and I thought, that's it. That actually is Oldale. What I'm seeing, this dry channel, is in fact Oldale. So I developed it into a composition plan, which is what you see there. And eventually it's become this.
Beautiful.
And what is beautiful, thank you, is that I was able to put those happy colours in there. You think, well, Lucia was having a frustrating walk. Why is she still saying it's joyous? But it might be frustrating, but oh boy, when you've been out and you've tackled that bog and that heather and so on and given your thighs a good workout, it still feels that you've done something good for yourself. But more than that, up here, the landscape is gloriously huge, wild, barren, bleak, and it makes me feel very, very small. And I like that because it puts life into perspective. It makes me feel that it's okay. You know, this earth is going to keep turning. This landscape is still going to be here, gently evolving. And so it's okay. And it's wonderful to be able to visit it and get that connection with it.
Lovely.
So there is Oldale, which I've called the swale, because one last bit of interesting information, a swale is actually defined as a channel or a marshy, boggy indentation. I think that's exactly what it is.
Yes, it certainly sounds like it. Lucia, one last question from me, and if I can say to colleagues on the call, if there's any questions, do pop them in the chat, or if you prefer, when we finish talking, you can just unmute yourself and ask the question directly of Lucia if you find that easier. So we've now got a roadmap out of lockdown. I know there's still things that could shift with it, but we do have some dates now. So when you're able to go out again, Lucia, where's the first place you're going to go to? Have you got a thought, well, whatever happens, that's where I'm going to go to first? Have you got that in your mind yet?
You know, that changes in my mind every week. Sometimes I think I'm just going to want to head to one of my old favourites, you know, places near Kettlewell, Burnsall, up Lanstrothdale, all that upper Wharfdale. I love it so much. But actually, I think, like us all, we're yearning, aren't we, for something different
Mm.
And that's what this whole quest is giving me. It could give anybody, finding out all these different places that I don't know. And one of the rangers has offered to walk with me and show me Malhamdale, you know, the one between Malham
Yes,
Cove and over
yes.
to the Tarn. And I think I'm going to take him up on that. But then there's quite a few over that way. It's Crummock Dale, and this, oh, I've lost it now, Deep Dale going into Dentdale, places that I can get to in a day, because at first we won't be allowed to stay overnight.
No.
So I'll be heading out that way for hopefully big long spring days out, and exploring over that way, I think.
Lovely. Lucia, thank you. So I'm not, I think you've sort of so captivated everyone with your explanations of your work that we don't have any questions in the chat, but does anyone want to ask any questions? Just unmute yourself and ask, please do. I will wait for a second or two to see if I can hear any voices. If not,
Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say that I was watching a live Facebook feed from Rich Bunce last night, obviously following in your footsteps of doing live Facebook feeds about his work. He's, for those of you who don't know Rich, he's a photographer. He's called a walking photographer. And one of the points you were making earlier, Lucia, about knowing your environment, you know, really well, understanding about the light and how it changes. And he was saying very similarly about how you can do some fantastic photography right on your doorstep, in your back garden, but you need to get to know your environment really well. And I thought that was, you know, that was a really nice connection I made between what you were saying and listening to Rich last night. So I do have a question from Ian, I think, just saying, are your paintings all pastels?
Yes, we've kept away this morning deliberately from technique and process and medium, because we could fill at least an hour talking just about that. And obviously not everybody is going to be interested in that nitty gritty. But yes, my paintings are all in the medium of soft pastel. I came across soft pastel about 30 odd years ago. I was learning portraiture with an artist in Australia, in Melbourne, and she happened to use soft pastel. And I became fascinated at her ability to capture different material using this medium, velvet, lace, you know, all with this medium. And I realized how manipulative, how easy it was to manipulate. It's very flexible. And so it's complete joy, because it has got some issues, but you can build and knock back and build again. And it kind of seems to mirror the Yorkshire weather and the experience of walking through that landscape with things coming and going, and going up the ascent or back down or whatever. And so I love how I can gently nudge something to the balance that I want. And I've not found any other medium that will do that for me. So I've stuck with it. I think it's like anything, when you become more and more skilled with a particular technique, you can do more with it. And that becomes, you're hooked then, aren't you? Whether that's crocheting, knitting, photography, calligraphy, whatever it is, you become hooked because you know it better and you can do more with it. Yes. And I think that's exactly the same thing that then goes into the subject matter as well. If you know it better, you can do more with it, just like Rich was also saying.
Yeah, just a few more questions have popped into the chat, Lucia. So from Alex, lovely to hear your focus and love of the Dales. It's given me a new insight into your work. No, question of technique from Alex. Do you fix work as you paint with pastels, or wait until you feel it's complete? If the latter, how do you keep the colors so clean?
Yeah. I said we could fill a whole hour about this, and we really could. The answer is no. Do not use fixative. Anybody playing with soft pastels for the first time, if you're taught to use fixative, politely decline, please. I work extremely hard, as you can see here, for there to be a range of tone, so bright brights and dark darks. And that's what I work for in each painting, because that's what gives them their pizzazz, if you like. And that's what gives them that sort of tummy turning moment, which echoes your tummy turning moment when you're actually out on the walk and you go, wow, look at that. And somehow I've got to put that into a painting, that wow moment. So it's in the tonal range. Now, if you use fixative makes your darks all a little bit lighter and your lights all a little bit darker. So you're going to kill that wow. Mm. And somebody did this once with a piece of work of mine way back in Australia. A framer said, oh, and I fixed it for you. Disaster. So I really learned the hard way. But okay, so if you don't fix it at the end, how does all the pastel stay on the surface? And this comes down to something that I'm very, very passionate about with the technique, is you use a very highly gritty surface, the grittiest you can cope with. So I prime my own surfaces a lot of the time. And that means that I've got a surface that actually feels a bit like a sandpaper. So anybody that's not into all this thing, imagine getting a piece of sandpaper and taking a blackboard chalk and moving the chalk across that's going to grip a load of that white from your chalk onto the surface. If you did that same chalk on a piece of black paper, it's not going to stick on the surface as much. And that same thing is what I use to keep all these little tiny particles of colour on the surface.
Amazing. Just a couple more comments, really. Lorraine was saying that she's found Wainwright's Walks in Limestone Country helpful in discovering lesser known dales. I don't know if that's a book you know of, but you might want to take that idea away. And
I definitely will. No, I don't know that book. I had an altercation with Mr. Wainwright years ago. I walked one of his walks in the Lake District and almost came to a very bad end on a very, very rocky ridge. Really scared myself. So I wrote to him and I said, I'm talking the 80s, he was still alive. Your walk in this book led me astray. And much to my amazement, he wrote back a handwritten notelet of his, and he said, no, I didn't, do it again. Kind of thing. But I will try. I'll have a look for that. So Wainwright's Limestone Country.
Yes, Walks in Limestone Country.
Thank you.
And well, the last comment, and it actually leads me very beautifully into giving my thanks, is from Nicola, saying thank you so much for your very interesting talk. We've really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. And that's from Nicola and John. So if I can perhaps add my thanks, Lucia, to you, and just to say, it has been a fascinating session, and I'm now going to remove the spotlight from you, and put it on me, not for no other reason than to just say a final words of thanks and a few bits of information. So that's the end of our virtual coffee morning today, and we hope you really enjoyed it. And we've enjoyed connecting with you all, albeit virtually. And thank you to those of you who've been able to give some donations to the Manor House. Those are hugely helpful to us. So thank you very much for that. We plan to continue to hold our coffee mornings on the last Friday of every month at 10:30. Until such time as we're able to welcome everyone back into the Manor House. And even then, we might think about how we could live stream them. We're getting also adept at all the digital technology now. But the next coffee morning is on Friday, the 26th of March, and it's called Ilkley from Village to Town. And it's going to be Alex Cockshott talking about with her enormous knowledge of our town. So I think that will be a really interesting coffee morning. Details of that will be posted on the website, and I think we'll be able to let you all know directly, because we can send you an email about that session. So can I just close by saying thank you again to Lucia. It really has been an absolutely lovely session, and I've really, you know, enjoyed it, enjoyed hearing about your work, understand more about, you know, your absolute passion for the Dales. So it's been lovely, and I hope everyone has enjoyed it too. So I will say thank you and say goodbye to everyone, and I hope you all have a very good rest of the day. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Lucy.
Take care, everyone.